Hey, Nick Tuckert here with the Historical Fencing Guild. Right now, we're under ridiculous uh, winter weather advisory, and I figured I'd take a chance, a moment, since once again my family's asleep and I can get some stuff done, to talk to you guys about some of why I do what I do, how I do it, methodology. Because the question has come up. A couple people have noticed and have commented to me, "Oh, you're a HEMA guy." Not technically. While I do love HEMA and I support it, I can't be part of that necessarily, and I have a good reason. You see, when I founded the Historical Fencing Guild, it was meant to be a bridge between different organizations. At the time, I was very active in the SCA. I am no longer, but I had friends who were in LARPs, and they simply wanted to learn how to work a sword better than the instruction they were getting in their local AMPGAR group. Oh, cool. I know how to make a sword go. I can help you make a sword go. The other thing is HEMA is, by definition, historical European martial arts. And that's where I get a little funny on the historical and a lot funny on the European, because what I have found is when you're working with someone, and you're not working from a student mindset, but as a sort of colleague mindset, something really cool with martial artists happens when they get together. Um, it doesn't take long for them to start sparring, and it's much like music. You get a few musicians in the same room, you can have an impromptu jam session pretty quickly. You have the same kind of gestalt that comes with martial artists, and I am a big proponent. It's actually in my book on the theory that the body mechanics of every human being, you know, before us and after us, as far as the species Homo sapien exists, are roughly going to have the same limitations. My elbow right now, I'm assuming it's a healthy elbow, has the same range of motion now, right now. Just sort of doing this downward cut into third, you know, this very natural motion. It's one of the most natural of all strikes. Body mechanics. This motion is exactly the same when you find a downward strike with a Dao in any dynasty, a Ming dynasty, doesn't matter. Any dynasty where they had a sword in their hand. Same motion as a German with a messer. As a Spaniard with a cutlass in the Bahamas. It doesn't matter. You take any period where a sword was used, the body mechanics are still the same. And for many, many, many years, finding treaties on the traditional masters was hard. You couldn't find, you know, how they, you'd find maybe Agrippa, but finding something about Capifero would be hard, or Fabris. There were, the problem, let alone the whole German longsword and names I'm going to have a lovely time pronouncing. The the problem I found was people get caught up in terminology and they get caught up in era. And my approach to how a sword works, how I encourage others, is what works for you. And I end up just sort of going like the buffet at a Chinese restaurant. I'm going to take some footwork over here from Tai Chi I dabbled in, and some more from over here in Spanish. We'll throw an Italian lunge if need be. Oh, you pick and choose. I don't believe in telling people how to fight. There are a lot of martial artists out there who come in, there's one way. This is, karate. This is the only way is to do it this way. This is the right way. This is the only way. This is the style way. Very rigid. And many martial arts approach things from that. I tend to approach things from all right, what works for you? If it's a new person, I'm going to establish a vocabulary. But it's not going to be a bunch of hard to understand Italian words. It's not going to be a bunch of German words. It's not Japanese words. It's going to be a simple number system, a simple approach to footwork, just to build a Rosetta Stone for newcomers. So that if you've never trained in anything, you can train in this. I'm sorry, I stammer sometimes. Normally I'd edit it out, but that's part of who I am, so I'm going to let it roll. Everybody comes both with to any martial art with their own knowledge, but they also come with their own experience. No one is a blank slate unless you're working with very, very young children. And even then, as soon as they watch something on the TV, they start picking up stuff. Good, bad, doesn't matter. They pick up stuff. That's why I ask people when I train with them, do you have a martial arts background? Because if you do, I'm not going to start you like, no, this is how to do it, and change. Your body's already learned things. I'm going to try to teach you how to use what your body already knows to work with a style that will work with you. Because it might shock you to hear this, but someone who is 6 foot tall and lanky built won't fight the same way that someone who's 5'6" and a little on the chunky side, And you have to respect that. And instead of fighting against that, you have to work towards finding that. And unless you have a very precise reason for studying a single style, heritage, morbid curiosity, I always wanted to. And there are people like that. I always wanted to fight. Like Cyrano de Bergerac. How would he have fought? We'll look it up. The setting, etc. Musashi. Okay, so you need to find, why don't you read his books? That's a good start. And, go from there. But, as you can see right there, I take Western masters and people and styles. I take Eastern masters, peoples and styles. I go, wow, what if we were all just people and styles? What if we were all people who, for whatever reason, enjoy using a roughly 2 to 3 foot long or more edged chunk of metal to do harm onto people who try to do harm onto us? Very rudimentary. Well, then we shall be able to talk about it. And once you start realizing, hey, it doesn't matter what style you fight, maybe you should, what weapon do you fight? How do they interact? I know people never heard of a nunchuck rapier bout. They happen. As long as you have experienced enough martial artists at their style to work with someone of a different style, open-minded enough to let things go, you end up with this physical conversation. And that's what the Historical Fencing Guild has always been about. It's about setting a forum for this conversation. And I do actually have, it's not used a lot right now, but there is a group, HFG-public, on Facebook that anybody can join, and that's just meant to be a place like that. Eventually, when I start seeing more activity, I'll throw stuff up there. There's a private group I keep to tend to local people I train with, and that's all about who's going to be out, who's bringing what to dinner, that kind of stuff. Nobody really needs to know that unless you're actively there. So look into that, because what I want to do is start building more bridges between the groups. That's why I'm not an ARMA, because to join ARMA, you have to sign a kind of non-disclosure contract. You won't use, or teach outside of the organization to other organizations what you learn in that organization. Some HEMA groups can get like that. The SCA was very, at least locally, was very odd about that. Now, I do say historical when I say historic because I don't usually focus on sport fencing and I don't usually focus on kendo. I mean, but if we have guys who are into that, you take that and you bring them together and you say, hey, tell me about your style. How does this work? And you end up getting this conglomeration where people are trying things and learning things. It's sort of a debate class and a discussion group on martial arts physical education. And that's how it's supposed to be. My manual, aside from being a great basis for somebody who wants to learn and doesn't want to get bogged down in the expense, because I do not believe that expense should keep martial arts education from anybody. Being as poor as I am, I would never inflict that on anyone else. But at the same time, if a HEMA guy wants to talk to an SCA guy, they should be able to talk. Sorry, I'm shaking my little table because I'm adamant. And the reason I don't say European is I deal with people who do Screama and Pensalot. Pensalot dagger, like straight European dagger about versus somebody doing Pensalot, moving around. It's radically different. And the neat thing is the more people you have with the more styles, the more conversation, as long as you can keep the egos out of it, which can be challenging. The more you can learn about yourself, about your style, about what you want from it. Because there's more than practicality. I mean, we're not all out here fighting and training martial arts for solely practical reasons. If we were, we'd all be fighting something like Krav Maga, very in, out, break things and go hand to hand, and it'd be focused primarily on guns because for the most part, people don't carry around things. Granted, I do teach from a perspective that can be used for self-defense, but that's a little different, and probably a video I should shoot later. Getting back to the point, this is why the Historical Fencing Guild works the way it does. Optimally, as long as civility is maintained, everybody should get together. My best days, I can think of, were bouts where we'd have Sword Sage on YouTube. He'd come out and he'd be doing something with Bagua or Wing Chun back in the day. I miss when he used to play heavier at Wing Chun. I really enjoyed it. It was fast and light. He got into some different things, but I miss that. And you'd have this rapier versus Jin, but they are different weapons and they're different styles, but you could get that flow and the feel. And it's, okay, what can I take from your art to make mine better? What can my art give you to make yours better? That's what I'm about, folks. And that's why I'm not necessarily a part of any of the other organizations, so that I can be amicable to all of them. I hope this answers some of the questions, and I do intend to have more videos and some more where I'm talking about perhaps the philosophy of training, the philosophy of defense. I think it's something that needs to be discussed. So always throw stuff in the comment section. This is a bit of a rambling video, but I hope it was at least interesting. We'll do more. I intend to upgrade very soon, as soon as my mainline instructional videos will start up, and we'll be able to actually film in a semi-studio scenario the lesson plan for the not the Historical Fencing Guild, but for the Simple Sword, which is Volume 1 of the Historical Fencing Guild's Manual of Defense. Got nothing else, so Stay warm out there, those of you who are being hit by the same lovely winter storms I am. And as always, support your local swordmaster.